I realized that this is probably not the best setting for me to record videos, but I'm moving from a country to another, and so I'm using the light from the living room, which is a super bright yellow light, and I guess it's making me... I'm recording off of my laptop and my big face is just down there, so I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to look all the time into the camera. By instinct, I will want to look onto the screen so that I can look at my face and see when I make a mistake. But anyway, this is a video that I really wanted to make because there is a question that I get asked many times on my channel. And it seems to be one of those things where most novice artists and designers get often very confused or disagree on. And it does not matter from which discipline or which field they come from. It could be architecture, it could be interior design, graphic design, motion design. It doesn't matter. And the question is, how do you price your first professional client work? Now, let me specify here, obviously we're not talking about the first project that you do for your cousin or for a friend of your brother or sister. We're talking about a first client work that you might get, I don't know, maybe after you graduate from school, or maybe you're still a student and you're trying to make some money on the side. Maybe you're already working on building your first company. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Now, the important thing to understand is that there is no objective way for me to tell you how much you should charge for your work, especially without knowing the typology of work, the time that you need in order for you to do the work that you're supposed to do, the type of client that you're dealing with. And even then, even if I had that information, there are so many more variables to consider that it's really hard to define a standard pricing method that works for you all the time. However, I can tell you this. Every time that a novice designer came to me for help with a project, and we went through it together to more or less understand what a fair price for that project could have been, their idea of fairness was at least 2 to 3, sometimes also 4 times lower than mine. And that is because one thing that I've noticed, those that are just starting out, they often do not know a few basic things about the business side of design. And probably the most important one is that no matter where you are located on this planet, with a few exceptions of course, when you start invoicing clients and when you start receiving money on your bank for the work that you do, usually your government, whatever it is that you're earning, they'll take anything between 30 and 50, in some cases also 70% in sales tax, income tax, general contributions, insurances that you have to pay. This of course differs from case to case. In some cases, the government will contact you immediately, maybe at the end of the month or after a few months, and they will tell you, hey, you owe us money. In some other cases, this bill will arrive to you 1 or 2 or maybe 3 years later. And so if you did not know that you had to pay those taxes, all of a sudden you will find yourself defaulting because of all the taxes that you owe, and so you will have a debt. Trust me, with young professionals, this happens a lot more often than you might think. Now, the reason why the government sends you the bill later and not immediately, it is to give you a little bit of room to breathe in the very beginning of your business, so that you have the time to make some money and get your business up and running. But this still means that during your startup period, you should still set aside some money to be able to pay those taxes later on when the government finally reaches out to you. And so novice designers, by not understanding this very basic notion, they often end up charging half of what they should be charging with their first clients. My recommendation for you is, before you start a business, go and talk to a tax consultant or to an accountant and just explain them what it is that you're trying to do. Now, this might cost you maybe $100, $150, but it will definitely save you from a lot of trouble in the future. Do not rely on the classical, oh, but I heard this guy told me, I watched it on a video, Fabio told me. Don't do that. This stuff is really serious and it can get you in real trouble. Now, as on how much you should price your first client work, this is a very hard question for anyone to answer, because you need to know the parameters that drive the value of the work that you're required to do whilst of course keeping in mind that you should still make enough money for you to live on, and at the same time being able to pay for all of your expenses like software, hardware, electricity bills, assets, training, professional development, the taxes that I just mentioned. Now, in business, you often hear people saying things like, whatever job you can get, it's all gravy, or when it comes to work, anything goes. In reality, things are a little bit more difficult than that. In fact, developing the ability to distinguish an opportunity from a problem, it's a really important skill to develop as a business owner. Let me give you an example. If a client contacts you for a job that requires you to work for 1 week, and the client only has a budget of $150, which for the Western world, it's basically less than the value of a full day of work, especially if you own your own company, you might think, well, it is what it is. I'm just starting out, so I'll do that job. Now, that kind of work in most cases will hurt you more than doing you any good, because it will set up a bad precedent as of how you will perceive your value as a professional and how you price yourself with your clients. In cases like this, instead, the solution would be for you to talk to your client and let them know what the more realistic budget should be for the work that they have requested, without having any fear of rejection. You need to be able to make a living out of your work. So defining your prices for your performance is something that, in a way or another, you will have to figure out on your own. You will for sure make mistakes, that's a guarantee almost, but that's fine as long as you understand those mistakes and that you learn from them, because if you don't learn from them, then those mistakes will not serve you, but they will end up defining who you are instead, which is of course something that you want to avoid at all costs. Now, even if I tell you what the market price for a certain type of performance is, say like renderings or animation, as a novice, I guarantee you that you will think that what I'm suggesting to you will be too much money for your client, and you will end up rejecting my suggestion. And that is because the professional confidence that it takes for a young professional to ask for what you deserve can only be built over time as you build your professional image. And that can be a long struggle for many, so you need to be patient. Now, if you want to be taken seriously as a professional and you want to be paid as a professional, you need to acknowledge first that you should have the skills and the capabilities of a professional. And these take time to develop. And the fastest way for you to do that is to work with people that can give you those skills and that can help you develop as a professional. And I feel like I've said professional too many times. I personally think that you should try and invest at least 5 years of your life working for somebody that can teach you this stuff before you think of setting up your shop and before you try and approach clients. Somebody once told me that knowledge makes money. The more you know about your industry, the more you can understand the system that you're in, the easier you can evaluate the right worth for your work. If you do not have the chance to go and work for somebody where you could potentially learn these things faster, then try at least to freelance for a design studio instead of a client, because the studio might actually appreciate you more and give you better opportunity for professional development than a client, because the client is just interested in squeezing as much as possible out of you. Thanks to Corona, now a lot more studios are open to the idea of remote working, so you might want to take advantage of it, or you might want to at least consider the opportunity. If that is also not an option for whatever reason, and working with a client is your only option, then don't be afraid to ask what you think it is that you deserve for your work. Again, you will for sure make mistakes, but that's okay, it's part of the journey. My only suggestion is that every time that you get a new client, you should try and raise your prices gradually, because over time you will understand what is your worth and what is the right price for your services. Try to remain open-minded, allow yourself to think that maybe what you know right now might become wrong or outdated at some point. Stay humble, like really humble. Remember that working hard alone is not enough anymore. Nowadays, you gotta be smart as well, and you got to work smart. And ultimately, remember that you need to give yourself time. So really, be patient. Everyone's journey is different, and everyone achieves certain things at a different pace. You might be lucky and you might get a break in the very beginning and start doing well pretty quickly, or you might need to wait a few years. If your business really matters to you, then I guarantee you that the prospect of waiting a few years in order for you to achieve any form of success, then it will not be a problem. Anyway, I hope that you find any part of this video helpful. As always, thanks a lot for watching. My name is Fabio Palvelli. Sorry for the weird low quality studio, but to me it was more important to get the message out instead of waiting a few months until I'm relocated in Switzerland. That's all I wanted to share with you guys. See you next time.